is. Hi everyone. I'm assuming there's going to be some new guests here today. I've spoken to so many of you over the last week, so let me reintroduce myself. My name is Leah. I'm W3LEO. I'm the treasurer of the Middle Amateur Radio Club, and I will be your instructor tonight. Also, my OM, old man as we call it, my husband, W5 will also be helping me as well. But anyways, again, thank you all for coming tonight. You see, don't have the blue background, so you'll be able to see me better. Let me scoot up my mic just a hair bit more, okay? All right. Again, thank you guys for joining us for week 2. Now, again, for those that have not been here before, any of the slides that we go through that have the questions and the page number, those are the questions that you need to focus on to study on for the exams. Those are your point questions. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. All right. We're going to be going over 6 different chapters. Obviously, not everything in all the book. Again, our book is. All right. Going solo in your first amateur radio transmission. Something you would like to volunteer with. But, is everything okay? Okay, sorry. Anyways, we use our handhelds there we stage the parade is what we do, but we can go more on that another time. All right. But again, our club does participate in multiple events that uses our radios. Of course, another good way of listening to how people talk our lingo is maybe getting a radio and listening to our Saturday night nets that's on our local repeater, and you'd be able to listen and so once you get your license, then you can actually participate. Now, if you know someone who has their license, they can check in for you just to get you. But anyways, most new technician class hams start out with a dual band handheld, and the popular are 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Here's one example right here. It's a Yaesu. This one is a digital FT2D. This is one that my husband uses. Anyways, the radio will have a keypad. This has a small keypad here, as well as a frequency oscillator, which is a VFO knob, or up and down push buttons. The keypad, VFO knob, and push buttons are a great way for the frequency choice. And so we'll go there. Now, we'll learn something what's called simplex and duplex. Now, simplex, hold on, let me turn this on. We'll make it talk in a minute. But simplex, we want to use simplex whenever possible. Even on a short test transmission to check out your new antenna requires state identification. So doing so on a simplex keeps you from tying up the repeater. Basically, simplex is radio to radio. Then that way, again, you're not using the repeater and you are able to just talk to the person that you want to talk to. Yes, others can hear you, but you're still more likely to just be between you and that other person. All right, we'll come back to the handheld in a bit. Okay. All right. Now, this is the transmit frequency. This is the simplex, 147,550. One radio is transmitting on our frequency, the 147 or a frequency, 147,550, and the next one is receiving the frequency at 147,550. That's the definition of simplex. Now, it would turn to the opposite. when one is transmitting at the same frequency, the 147.550, then when they reply back, the other one that was transmitting will also now receive on the 147.550. So again, they're radio to radio talking to each other. Now, repeaters. So a repeater is a device that transmits amateur radio signals whenever within a specific ham band. When you get your new license, monitor the repeater without transmitting and to get an idea on when the proper operating procedures are on your local frequency. That's why I gave the example of listening to like our net, because that is the most common opportunity to listen to how we talk and things like that. Now the repeater is an offset. The repeater offset, is the difference between the repeater's output and where the repeater receives your transmitted frequencies. Which there is the repeater identifying itself in Morse code, which is our W5MWC, or as we say, Whiskey 5, Mike, Whiskey Charlie. We use phonetics. We'll learn about that later. And of course, with repeaters, if you have a transmit frequency of 449.0 megahertz, once it hits through the repeater, you'll have a different receive frequency. So the receive frequency will be the 444.0. So that's how our repeater is set up. And W5DRO will give a little more detail about that I'm not quite there yet. Thank you.
All right, so what Leah's trying to explain is that a repeater simultaneously listens to what it's receiving. It listens to the what you transmit out your radio and then retransmits it back out on a different frequency. In our case, the repeater is actually receiving at 449.000 megahertz, and the repeater then transmits out on 444.000 megahertz. Notice the 444 and the 449, they're exactly 5 megahertz apart. That is what is called the repeater offset. All right, and I'll toss you back to that graphic and to Leah. There's the graphic.
All right. I hope you like the graphic. I just sorry. Okay, now frequency coordinators are fellow ham operators in a local or regional area. Voted into their positions by fellow hams are active repeater station owners or auxiliary station operators. Each repeater is assigned a specific operating frequency so they don't interfere with each other. That way you're, again, not interference is a big no-no in amateur radio, but you wouldn't want to do that anyways, because then you can't hear the person that you're trying to talk to. So having that difference helps, having those coordinators helps control. And then when you're in hopefully never an emergency, or if you're just wanting to talk to someone, then you'd be able to use it. Now, most new 2-meter 440 megahertz dual band ham radio equipment has an automatic repeater offset capability. This means on the 2-meter band, your transmitter will offset plus or minus 600 kilohertz. It could go either way depending on the band plan, plus or minus. But only one answer with plus or minus. Did you have anything that you want to add to that, Donald? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any questions or questions and answers in the chat? If anyone has a...
I'm going to go check it right now.
Okay, I'm going to do a test on our radio so you can hear it again. I'm going to give out my call sign. Again, this is our local repeater that we use on a regular basis. This is our 444.0. This is... There it goes with the repeater toning, giving the tone. This is Whiskey 3 Lima Echo Oscar. Just doing a test for the amateur radio technician class that we're hosting for the Middale Amateur Radio Club. And I just wanted to say that I'm just doing a test. So this is W3LEO. We'll see if anyone comes back. All right.
We know that there's a white noise in the audio. We're still looking to fix that.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. If anything changes, just holler and we'll do that. Okay, again. Now going solo. Your first amateur. I'm sorry. I got myself confused for a second there. Next is going solo. Your first amateur radio transmission. Actually, I think I got something flipped. Oh well. You must ID when testing your station, like I did, and you ID every 10 minutes of conversation. So anytime that you're in a conversation with another ham, you must ID with your call sign. Hint, 10 minutes. That is your key word. 10 minutes. Words. Now, 2 fun letters. CQ, Charlie, Quebec, means calling any station. And we use this worldwide bands, and we'll use this on all worldwide bands and weak signal calls over VHF and UHF only. But CQ is never used when operating on an FM repeater and simplex frequencies because the signal is just strong enough for others to hear you. Just simply announce your call sign and that you are monitoring. So I'll give you an example. When you're on VHF and UHF, you go CQ, CQ, CQ. This is Whiskey 3 Lima Echo Oscar calling CQ to any hams out on the frequency. See if anyone comes back to you and talks to you. Now on the simplex or your repeaters, you could just say the Whiskey 3 Lima Echo Oscar monitoring, mobile, however you want to say it, or ask, hey, is anyone out there? How's my signal? Then they can come back and give you a signal report, and then you know how to adjust. You need to adjust your mic or your volume or anything like that. Now, common courtesy. Obviously, this is a big one. Common courtesy should prevail on the amateur radio bands. Our reputation of self-policing depends on our long-standing cooperative behavior. Amateur bands are crowded, and occasionally unintentional interference is a fact of life, but it must never be intentional. So the key words is listen, listen, listen. So when you're trying to get on the HF, VHF, when you get on a frequency and you don't hear anybody there, you always ask, is this frequency? Give me a second. Repeater has to be talking. You'll get on that frequency and you will ask, is this frequency in use? Say it at least 3 times, because there could be a net going on, or someone could have already used it, but you didn't catch it in time, or you didn't hear them. So if no one comes back, then you can go out and use that fun word CQ and make a contact. So following these good procedures during a contest helps you get more contacts. One event that you'll have a chance to do so is field day. You will set the minimum information in the contact, which will give more information, but field day always happens the last weekend of June. We operate out of a park here in Midwest City, but it is worldwide, nationwide, statewide, countrywide. There's a lot of participation. So what you'll do is you will transmit your call sign and the information you need, which in our case, we use a club call sign. So that means anyone that does not have a license could come in and see how it sounds, and they use our club call sign. So you say, this is W5MWC, Whiskey 5 Mike, Whiskey Charlie in Oklahoma, because that is the state that we're in, and that we are 5'9". 5'9" is the sound. Like if you can hear them clear as day, but it's also the meter on your radio. So, but if they come back and say like, well, you're a 5'3", meaning they can hear you, but you're like in the dirt. You're kind of fading, or the fun part is pulling a contact out of the mud, as we call it, because when they are so far out there or coming and fading in and out, especially when propagation is just right. We'll get into more of that too later, but I'm just saying you can, you can pull some pretty cool contacts, just barely getting them, but That's what, and then you tell them thanks for the contact. So that's always a big one. Thanks for the contact. Now, the shorter the wavelength, the more easily it can penetrate. That is why UHF is stronger than VHF. Signals in the 70 centimeter, 400 megahertz band are short enough in wavelength that they penetrate most walls with impunity. I give you these funny looks, so if I said something, I'm sorry. Okay, is there any questions for the going solo part? Because we're going to another chapter, or touching on another chapter. There you go. All right. Well, keep in mind.
There's 7 people watching.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Okay. Right now it's emergency, and hint the 2 exclamation points. The emergency. It is important to keep track of emergency messages as they pass through a well-structured amateur radio traffic handling system. The makeup of the preamble of the message gives us the details to know where the message came from and where it's going down the line. So you need to know, obviously, the name of the person. You document the time, where the message is needing to go. Like, I'm sure most of you got a gist, but like an emergency setting, obviously, you're working from, God forbid, a tornado. Someone comes out and says, I need help to find out if my grandmother's home was hit. Well, what address are there? You give that message to another amateur, and then they do a call out and see if anyone's in that area to be able to find out if their home was hit, or if not. They would be able to tell you, no, this area was actually clear. It's just that the phone's dead, so we can't communicate right now. Okay, good. So there's many ways, and again, that's learn later on once you get more into, if you want to get more into that part of the amateur radio world. Now, the operative word here is standard. Don't try to be cute with phonetics, like the fans, in other words. But the purpose of phonetics is to make yourself understood under poor conditions, not to make a statement. Always use the International Civil Aviation Organization standard phonetics, which are recognizable worldwide.
What are those?
Well, yeah. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Echo, Golf, GH, Hotel, sorry, India, HIJ, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Michael, November, Oscar, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but Oscar, Papa, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, no, not Victor, is it on? Oh. Oh, okay. Well, I was finishing my phonetics, but okay, we'll learn about those later. Anyways, okay, now the RACES and ARES, which those are 2 groups that are prominent in the amateur radio community for emergency services. They are 2 organizations. So what do they have in common? They provide emergency communications as an active ham. A member of ARES or RACES requires a lot more than having your ham radio all set to go and some flash magnetic signs for your car. There's extra training that goes involved in that. So if that is something you're interested in, we can get more information on that another time. But again, that is another world, another part of the emergency setting, more than just what. Do you have a question or state? Okay, I'm gonna state. W50 has something that he would like to say. Go ahead.
All right, so RACES is pretty much not around anymore. But ARES is still working and is more of a collaboration between all of the other amateur radio clubs. We do provide a service to our community right now, even during times of disaster. Our served agencies that we support are the Midwest City currently. right now. We do support Midwest City if there's ever an event that requires assistance, and we do it under the umbrella of Aries. But our amateur radio club's primary focus is Midwest City. Back to you, Leah. So now, this is a big deal. So there was
Okay, let me start over again, and then I'll go back to Donald. I apologize for that. I was trying not to have echo. Okay, let me go back to that. Okay, operating outside of the handband limits in very few cases of which involve potential lost life or limb are all conditions, all bets are off. So unless you are in loss of life or someone you're with is loss of life or limb, that's severe. This you don't get on outside of handband limits. Meaning so. Anyways, be sure that if you use this free pass, you indeed have a bona fide emergency and that you are able to document it to the FCC if needed. And thank you those in the chat for helping me out. Okay, now.
By the way, I'm muted
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, now I'll go back to W5 Euro and he'll be able to explain more.
Thank you, Leah. Sorry about that. She didn't know that I was muting her mic whenever I came to this camera. Be sure that you operate within our bands, and that if you do have an emergency, and you need to make sure that it is a bona fide emergency for one thing. And what I mean is there has been an example of there was an incident where an amateur radio operator, he was driving along the freeway, and he was in an area where there was no cell phone service, and then there was a pileup happening. And during that pileup, no one could call 911 because there was no cell phone service. He switched his radio over to the local sheriff's office frequency and was able to get help. Help came, everything was good. However, when the FCC investigated it, they found that there was several repeaters within coverage area of that area that he could have used amateur bands to get help with. So be careful and know the area, especially know the area that you are in, and the ways that you can get help. Always try every other option before going outside of our bands. Okay, back to Leah.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so what is a must-have characteristics of emergency traffic? A good emergency traffic handler will always print the radio traffic in block letters, no cursive, word for word exactly as it was received. So that way they have exactly everything that works. Even if it doesn't make sense, you've got to write it all down. So print. All right, is there any questions for emergency? Is there any questions for the emergency section of the...
No, nope, just those monitoring. Make sure to ask questions in the live chat.
All right, yeah, we're live in the live and in the chat, and if you have any questions, we'll be able to answer them quickly.
And there's several
All right, W50 real quick.
Yeah, just make sure to ask the question in the chat, like Leah said. I see that there are a lot of other seasoned amateur radio operators that are in the chat also, and they would be willing to help answer any questions that you may have as well. So please ask a question if you have any. Okay, back to Leah.
All right, now we're going into weak signal propagation. So this one's a fun one, which propagation 2, you learn a lot more in your general class, but this touches up on it. So let's just say you and your pal, which just earned your technician class license, and you each have new handhelds, like what I showed you, tuned to the simplex frequency that we spoke about. Your friend lives on the other side of a jagged rocky hill. Now, will you be able to communicate by simplex, no repeater, over this hill? Most likely, yes. What it is called a knife edge diffraction. Hint that word, knife edge diffraction. Caused by an intervening building or hill may give you some great communication. So it allows the signal to bounce off and come back and edge back to where you'll be able to make that connection, make that communication. That's one fun thing about the radio signals, is that they can do all kinds of fun stuff. All right, on 10 meters, we may communicate regularly via skywaves with stations close to 1,000 miles away. Thanks to the sporadic E-skip, which that is an E layer, it's part of, again, that's part of propagation. It's, if you know about the science part, it's one of the layers over the earth. Anyways, on 6 meters, this phenomenon usually occurs several times a week during the summertime and in December. And on 2 meters, skip conditions may prevail once or twice a year, and just for a few minutes during the summertime. And those are the ones that you usually can make opportunity of getting cool contacts that you would never be able to get before. So, okay, we have a question in the chat. Go ahead.
Okay, we have a question. Do local emergency services monitor amateur repeaters in their area?
I believe some do. I know that some of our, on the other side, I know more. Oklahoma City does. I don't know about Midwest City right now, but they do know that what we do obviously is important. I know Moore does. Well, and well, even a lot of the local TV stations does listen to the amateur radio bands, because when we are storm spotting, if we happen to get in that position where we're storm spotting and we give the information to them, then they can listen in as well, and then they know that we're actually seeing something that's going on out in the wherever we're at. So that is another fun thing. Yeah, but yeah, they do. But I'm just not 100% sure on Midwest City at this time. I can't confirm or deny, so on that one. But I do know that some do. All right, let's move on. All right, this constant coming and going of the skywave signal is due to selective fading, where the incoming signal may arrive from several paths, combining in phase to be nice and strong, yet taking a quick deep fade as the signal comes in from different paths, out of phase. This is a good sign that the band is open for long range, which is what we call DX. DX, skywave contacts. That is going to be your international contacts. Anything outside of the U.S., Canada is considered it, Mexico is considered it, but these, to me, when you get those, that's when you might be able to get Australia or Japan. Some of those really, really hard countries to get by because of where they're located. And so, but those are going to be your international contacts. So those are fun. I think my farthest, I have spoke to a guy out of New Zealand before, but it wasn't, I was a technician class, and I had just made contact with the USS Midway. He had heard me on there and then made contact with me through that way. But I think my farthest on my own was in Croatia. Was it Croatia? It was one of the, over there by Russia. So I know I'm trying to remember where it was at. It was one of those little countries over there. So, but I know some club members have gotten some really cool contacts, but even just sitting at the park. So, all right, we'll move on. All right, I'm sure a lot of us have seen a mirage, but this is frequency seen as water shimmering on a roadway, but it's actually the blue sky you see on an inferior mirage. Another type of mirage may occur above us. It's called a superior mirage. This allows us to see things suspended upside down many miles away. The superior mirage also creates longer than usual range on the 2 meter and 70 center bands, thanks to a temperature inversion when the layer of warm air traps colder air below it, creating a tropospheric duct. So, you have anything to add on that? All right. Any questions? Let me know. Okay, this word I don't know. I know how to say it, but it's tongue twister to me. Elliptically or circularly polarized radio signals can be received with either a vertically or horizontally polarized antenna. However, you can obtain significant improvement in reception by a circularly polarized antenna, which next week we will touch more in antennas. So if you have any questions about those, keep those in mind, and we'll have opportunity to answer those next week, because we actually have a chapter on that. Now, easy super long distance, or HF, propagation is possible at the peak of the sunspot cycle, when the F2 ionospheric layer is thick and stable. Just a few watts can gain you worldwide communications on 6 and 10 meters during these times. However, they don't call it sporadic for nothing. You can catch some great contacts, and so this is a good reason to be on the air. And there are certain times of the day where one band will be clear as day, and then certain times of night it's just nothing there. That's how it's hit and miss. But that's when you learn that, to know, okay, this time of day I need to be on this band to be able to make contacts, and then when it gets darker, go to a different one, and then you can make contacts there. All right. Likely during the day, near dusk and dawn, during these times of high spot activity, you may get a response from another station halfway across the country using 10 meters. This is because of the F layer in the atmosphere, which you can kind of see in the picture there, the difference on how the layers play such a huge role in our communication, and so does the sun. And if there's a lot of sunspots, and if the sun's really going at it, the bands could be dead, or it could help us, but most of the time it's dead. All right, is there any questions for that time? All right, let's see what the next one is. Ooh, this is a fun one. Talking to outer space. Yes, as technicians, amateurs, you can talk to space. But anyways, what is a thrill to talk on your small handheld to an astronaut? Of course, you do need a good antenna too, besides your little antenna. It happens a lot with the technician class license or higher. You too can explore space with astronauts and cosmonauts, which there are licensed amateur radio operators that are astronauts. Now, ham satellites are not geostationary, but rather low Earth orbits, also referred to as LEO. So we do have satellites out there too. Now, the satellite beacon is a continuous faint transmission. Oh, sorry, I'm not trying to move. The satellite beacon is a continuous faint transmission that carries digitized information about the satellite itself. Ham satellite controllers can monitor the beacon with special software and check everything from the inside temperature to how fully charged the satellite batteries are. Now, it is pretty much a cardinal rule that once a radio signal has been transmitted, it becomes public domain. There are no restrictions on who can receive radio signals, through there may be some legal restrictions on what you do with that information. Now, as you listen to FM or single sideband satellite downlinks, the signal can appear to rise and fall rapidly. This is called spin fading. and is caused by the satellite's rotation in space to keep the solar panels from overheating. The way we determine the operating parameters of a distant ham satellite or a mountaintop ham radio repeater and weather station is through a one-way transmission beaming down telemetry from its internal measuring devices. The word telecommand refers to a one-way transmission to control by turning on, turning off, or modifying options of another ham radio device many miles away, sometimes thousands of miles away. This is one. FM packet is one of the most popular digital communication systems. It is fun to receive an FM packet transmission from other hams, usually stored and forwarded via the satellite or space station. And I would like to see if W5DRO could explain a little bit more about it, just because I'm still learning this.
Okay, so packet is a digital format of that amateur radio uses, and it's just like any what you would think about for those of you who are maybe IT related. IP, IP technologies or TCP technologies. It sends information in chunks and little packets. So packet radio does the same thing, little chunks. And believe me, you can do TCP/IP over packet radio. It's just extremely slow for those of you who are into networking and stuff like that. But a thing about this talking to outer space is that you are the thing that we have the space station has a packet repeater on it, and you can set up your radio to packet to it, and then it will repeat that packet down over its entire footprint. So you can literally send a packet that has a message on it, and it can be received thousands of miles away over that footprint of that repeater. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, because I obviously don't know that much about that. There's still a lot to learn. Oh, okay. We have a video now. Okay. We're going to watch a quick video. It's approximately 20 minutes long. We're getting closer to the end of the class, but this one is a neat video that we found of an astronaut who is an amateur radio operator. So I hope you guys take the opportunity and watch this, and then when we come back, we'll ask if there's any questions or anything like that. Okay? You ready for me? Okay. Give me just a minute. All right, here we go.
Expedition 25 Commander Doug Wheelock gave a tour of the Russian segment of the orbiting complex, including the Soyuz spacecraft docked there. Wheelock showed off the station's ham radio using the call sign NA1SS to talk with people on the ground as the station flies overhead at 17,500 miles per hour. Wheelock and flight engineers Shannon Walker and Fyodor Yurchikhin all will return home to Earth this Thursday, November 25th.
Welcome aboard. It's a pleasure to have you aboard today, and I wanted to show you a little bit about our ham radio operations on board. The last several months and weeks, I've really enjoyed using the ham radio and talking to ham radio operators all over the world. Most of our contacts are normally, I find, over North America, Mexico, then into Central America, and even in the Caribbean. I've had a few contacts through South America and also in Africa. And then again, over Europe, we have several contacts that we've made over Europe, and then also in Australia and Japan. And tonight, you're in for a real treat. We're getting ready to have a pass over North America. This pass, we'll actually be entering U.S. airspace right around the mid-coast of Oregon, the state of Oregon, just a little south of Portland. And we'll be flying over the central part of the U.S. and sort of exiting U.S. airspace, if you will, right around Brownsville, Texas, and going into Mexico over the Yucatan Peninsula. So we'll get some contacts. I've had several contacts in Cuba, and that's been a lot of fun. Got a lot of great friends there, and we'll go down over South America, and you'll see how the contacts taper out as we enter into the South American airspace. And I just wanted to share this with you because it's been a lot of fun. We get a chance to look out the window quite often, and we try to do that each day. And but using the ham radio, it's a little more sparse the times I get to do that because you have to be kind of time your pass over the area where you want to make the contacts, and during the workday that's difficult to do when we got a lot of work going on down here in the U.S. segment. And the ham radio is located in the Russian service module, which is the aft part of the space station. And so lining that up with some free time and some time when people where we're calling would be awake as well, since we operate off of Greenwich mean time. Have to remember that we're 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, 9, 10 hours ahead of times in the U.S. And so to make contacts there, usually it falls out that's during my evening time, either during pre-sleep or even into sleep time. Don't tell our flight directors. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's a Sunday evening, and it's getting on into the afternoon in the States, and so we should have a lot of contacts today on a weekend. And so I want you to enjoy this. Now there are some challenges to using the ham radio on board, and I think it gets frustrating for the ground, for the folks on the ground as well, because they're making what they feel is a very clear transmission to the space station, and then sometimes I don't hear the entire call sign, don't hear the entire transmission, and so it's difficult for me to give them a call back. And I know that's hard to understand, but I want you to experience this to see, because when we enter U.S. airspace, I'll just leave the mic off on the ham radio, and I want you to listen. They'll start calling the station before we even get to the coastline. And usually on the West Coast, those early callers that we get, I'll get a clear signal, and we'll get the entire call sign, and then you'll hear the barrage of call signs. And it's sort of like an alphabet soup. You hear letters and numbers coming up, and different voices from different states and different regions, and they're all coming up at the same time. And so it becomes a conglomeration of alphanumeric codes that you have to try to decipher, and you get better with it with time. But when I first started out, I was a little overwhelmed at the barrage of call signs coming in, and how to most efficiently pick out the call signs and then make those contacts. And of course, a great contact is that I hear their call sign and I call them back with our call sign. That I have them loud and clear aboard the space station. And our call sign here on the space station is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra. So you'll hear that coming over the airways. So November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, or NA1SS. You'll hear that. Sometimes people will say call just for the International Space Station. You may hear that as well. So, and then what I've been trying to do is, if I get a partial call sign, I'll it's normally a string of numbers and letters, usually one number in there. And if I only hear the last couple of numbers or a couple of numbers in the call sign, I'll repeat those couple of numbers and say that I missed the first part of the call sign, or the second part of the call sign, or the last part of the call sign, and have them call back. So normally that will whittle it down, and sometimes folks will kind of back off a little bit and allow that ground station to retransmit that signal. So a lot of times if I get a couple of letters and I repeat those back, that folks will use courtesy and allow that station to try to make contact again, and usually on that second or third time, I'll get that full call sign and be able to complete that contact. And so this will be a lot of fun. We're going to head down to the service module, and I think you'll really enjoy this. So come on along. We're coming into to Node 1 out of the airlock, and we'll head down to the Russian service module, down to the aft end of the space station. So we'll come through here and watch your head coming into PMA1, and please watch your speed. The speed limit here is 17,500 miles per hour, 500 miles per hour, and it is checked by radar. So here we go. Coming up into PMA1, and we use this for a lot of storage. We have a lot of our clothing and things, hygiene products stored in here. And coming into the the Russian segment here, and down at the deck level and going nadir towards the Earth. In this location is the MEM-1 of the MRM, the Mini Research Module. And you can see down there, way down at the other end of the MEM, is our Soyuz Olympus, which we will get into. We can see all the way down into the. And there's our hatch actually, down into the Soyuz, and actually that's Fyodor down there working to get the capsule ready for our departure. And that's where the Soyuz. That's where we docked the Soyuz back several months ago. So there's the MEM-1, and then coming from the pressurized adapter here, mating adapter, we come into the FGB, the functional cargo block of the space station, of the Russian segment. We're now in the Russian segment, and the functional cargo block is just that. It's a lot of cargo, a lot of systems in here. And see, these are all food containers that we have, and these are also some supplies and spare parts for both of the bathrooms on board, and those are located in here as well. Behind each of these panels along the wall, you can pull those panels off, and there are systems back there as well, systems and storage of different items. So we come through the FGB, we just kind of float through the tunnel here, and we'll come up on the pressurized mating adapter between the FGB and the service module. Actually, part of the service module, and we'll look nadir first, and nadir takes us into the docking compartment, and in the docking compartment is where the Russian EVAs are launched from. You can see the Orlan spacesuits that are hanging on the wall. There's Fyodor's spacesuit, and then Oleg's spacesuit that they wore on these last couple of EVAs, and then down here through this hatch is one of our Progress vehicles. That was a resupply vehicle that docked at the latest. It's Progress 40P there, that brought us resupplies, and that's docked nadir at the nadir end of the docking compartment. So turning zenith now, and we're looking zenith. We got the MRM-2, MEM-2, the mini research module that points towards deep space. Is actually on the zenith side of the space station, and Soyuz 24S, the Soyuz that Sasha and Scott and Oleg came up in October, is parked at the zenith end of the MEM-2. So you can see all the way down into the Soyuz, and there's actually the commander's seat inside of the Soyuz 24S. We'll continue down now into the service module, where the ham radio is located. This is also the central post of the space station, the command post. And coming into the service module, this is the central post here, where we gather in the event of an emergency. We also gather down here from time to time for meals. We try to eat meals. Each night as a crew. And we're coming up on the ham radio now, and this is the map that we use for our pass. And you can see this is our track. This is actually a program called Sigma, and you can see the red dot there. It's coming up on the Oregon coast, and so we'll be ready to pick up with our conversations with our ham radio friends here in just a few moments. And here's the ham radio, just on the starboard wall of the space station, located here. And of course the antenna is outside. We got a pretty powerful transmitter and receiver as well. Okay, we're here in the service module of the Russian segment, and this is the command post of the space station. We're going to go ahead and turn on the ham radio, and I'll have the microphone sort of near the speaker so you can hear the calls coming in. Again, we're in November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, or NA1SS, and we're coming up on the Oregon coast now, and we'll go ahead and turn the radio on, and I'll let you listen to our transmissions as we go over the U.S.
NA1SS, NA1SS, NA1SS.
You can hear the calls come. This is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station, over.
NA1SS.
You can,
CRAIG, and we've talked before, and I was hoping to catch you before you go home there.
I got a call from Craig. And Craig, say your call sign again, please.
Yes, November 6th, Radio Sierra X-Ray. November 6th, Radio Sierra X-Ray. Over, over.
Okay, November 6th, Radio Sierra X-Ray. We've got you loud and clear. We've got you loud and clear aboard the International Space Station. Welcome aboard. It's great to talk to you again, Craig. So you can hear a little bit of the static. There's a lot of the calls coming. In. So this is what we have to listen to try to. See, I got an EXB. So I heard the Echo X-Ray Bravo. Missed the first part of the call sign, but this is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station. Over.
Kilo Delta 0, Echo X-Ray Victor, sir.
Okay, Kilo Delta 0. Echo X-Ray Victor, we've got you loud and clear. We've got you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station, November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra.
Juliet Bravo.
I copied Juliet Bravo. Missed the first part of the call sign, but this is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station. Over.
This is November 0, Kilo Golf Mike.
November 0 Kilo Golf Mike. We've got you loud and clear aboard. The International Space Station. Welcome aboard.
Okay, Colonel, very good. Nice to make a contact with you again. And hey, just a question. I saw your Twitter profile picture. Is that Everest Base Camp? Go ahead.
Yeah, it sure is. It's Mount Everest, and I was there. That was taken at base camp. Have you been there?
Oh yeah, we've been to base camp a couple of times.
Yeah, it was just such a beautiful day, and such a incredible shot of Everest that I wanted to take it there. I had my spacewalking buddy Scott Parazinski from my shuttle flight back a couple of years, 3 years ago, was trying for the summit. I just was going to base camp and then just around base camp there.
Calling November Alpha.
N0 WAR. This is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International.
All right, we're back. We're going to go ahead and cut this. Let me cut this. The full video is on YouTube. This full. Oh, give me just a second, people. Okay. Sorry to cut that short, but we wanted to keep going because we still got a little bit more to go over. But that video is on YouTube. That's where we found it. And the full entirety, it is a 20-minute video, so we decided to go ahead, since we're getting kind of late in the evening, we want to just cut it a little short. But as a technician operator, you can operate and talk to the space station. So that is it might be a fun opportunity to do it. If you have kids, that'd be something fun to get them into more on the science part of the hobby. Is there any questions about the last chapter that we went over, the last section we went over? All right, then we'll get going again. All right, this is a fun one too. Computer goes ham digital. This is the ham digital part of amateur radio, which there is a vast world of it. I'm still learning a lot of it, and pardon me, I have friends that that do this. This is their way of doing. It is their way of making communications. Now the fun part, this one here, is the good old-fashioned international Morse code. When sending CW on the ham bands, the straight key helps form good dits and das when sending Morse code, which is called CW. So if you that is another fun amateur radio part that you can learn. And it's a fun digital way of learning. Because I know that something I was going to say, but it's in here, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. So here we go. Oh, my bad. W5 Euro has something that he would like to add to that. So let me go to you.
Yeah,
back to you.
Leah, do you know Morse code? Back to you.
No, I don't. Why? Because I can't hear it. I cannot differentiate the dits and the das. They do say if you are musically inclined or have that kind of tones where you can hear the notes, you would be able to hear that. I can't. Back in the
You could carry a tone if it was in a bucket.
Whoa! I can't. You guys get him in that chat. All right. If you decide to do some CW sending, which there are a lot of there are some cool YouTube channels on there that actually can teach you how to do CW if you've never done it before. We have club members who have done that because we also do CW at field day. Anyways, it is no longer required on the test. Unlike back years ago, you had to know CW to be able to pass, which I scaled on that one. You can use a straight key or an electronic keyer. You can even generate CW with a computer, which I forgot my visual, and I am sorry, but we did have a visual. Our keyer that's now we'll show it another time if we have an opportunity.
What? Why don't you just go get it? I mean, it's...
I'm hooked up.
Oh.
But it's a little bit different than what the picture was, but obviously you can look up Morse code keyers and you'll be able to find tons of pictures on Google. So here we go. Oh, here we go. We got another little video that John created on FT8, which is a digital version of communicating where you can make calls. You can make contacts through the computer and your radio. Now that one's a fun one to learn. Now if you notice the sound that's coming in, that is when they are transmitting and we are receiving. When we're receiving, you hear that, whatever that sound is, but when we transmit and they're receiving, they have the same kind of sound as well, and they are in sync with each other. They're time syncing with each other, sorry. But anyways, again, that's still something I'm learning on. I've done a little bit of myself. Actually one of the first times I did it, I made a contact with a guy in Michigan. So it was a lot of fun. All right, we'll move on. Again, okay, here's something on the test. ARQ stands for Automatic Repeat Request. Even though there's an R there, there's a Q. A system that lets your digital station automatically ask the other station to say again. Emit a missed set of characters. Like to say again? The earliest commonly used ARQ system in amateur radio was a largely defunct Amtor system. PACTOR has largely replaced Amtor because of its full ACII character set, whereas Amtor can only use uppercase ASCII. Okay, I have been corrected. Full ASCII character set, whereas Amtor only has uppercase letters. Doll, did you have anything? Okay. If you have any questions on that, again, I'm still learning this stuff too myself, so I don't know a lot. You are going to have a blast sending data with your laptop and a ham set. When conditions are good, data exchanges are letter number perfect. However, when multiple pass or multi-pass signals add and subtract from your signal, error rates are likely to increase. Ham radios and computers are made for each other. If your laptop or home computer has a built-in sound card and you can see what is sent via digital modes like CW, PS31, radio teleprinter, and nearly a dozen other digital modes, most which sounds like hash in your ear when listening to your receiver. Let your laptop sound card with appropriate software do decoding to the digital messages. That is still another one that I am not. I know my husband has used, which actually he's going to talk about that. So, go ahead, Donald.
All right, I'm not so much going to talk about the mode, but about using the sound card. So I've witnessed two stations on one down near Mustang or Yukon area, and one up in Chandler, Oklahoma. We were on FM Simplex, so we were talking radio to radio, and I was in between, because I'm in Midwest City, and I could hear both stations, but they could not hear each other. We switched over to a digital mode using our sound cards, and kid you not, 100% copy. The stations that could not hear each other in FM could hear in digital, because the sound card is more sensitive than your ear. Back to you, Leah.
Thank you, Donald. Appreciate that. Now, your best source for a list of Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP, nodes is a repeater directory. You can find one on the internet. Also, your local repeater control operator offering VoIP may also have favorite nodes to suggest too, which can be like D-Star. D-Star's internet base. What is it? They have certain reflectors. I'm sorry. Again, I'm still learning a lot, so you're going with me on this. Oh yeah, WinLink. I remember learning a little bit about that. I'm not as familiar with it. So, anyways, we'll move on from that. If you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat, please. A fascinating type of ham radio operation is called fast scan television, abbreviated as ATV. Hams can send fast scan TV pictures direct or through special fast scan television repeaters over hundreds of miles. Fast scan TV is wide, about 6 megahertz, and can be found on 70 centimeter frequencies and higher where equipment cost is modest, especially if you already own a video camera. You can visit www.alpha-tango-victor-tv.org, Tango Victor. And back to Donald.
So I can elaborate a little bit more about FastScan TV since, I work in the television industry. So FastScan TV here in the amateur community, they've widely adopted the European standards for FastScan TV. And so it has gone digital, but they've widely adopted the digital format that's being used overseas, which uses digital QAM. Here in the United States, current TV right now is 8VSB. All over the United States, it's 8VSB, which is a different protocol. Each one of these are different protocols of digital. And yes, it's 6 megahertz wide, so your signal, and it's the same width that we use in professional broadcast. So I can elaborate more on that, on a technician night or a tech night when we dive deeper, more in depth into certain items. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. Back to you, Leah.
All right, thank you for that. And I have actually seen him participate in those, and what's cool is when you make a contact with someone, on the Fast Scan TV, you'll download their. Oh, that's slow. Okay, never mind. I'll talk. But slow scan TV is another type where you. And then what we've done is you make contact and you can download. They'll send you their QSL card and it downloads it down. And it's kind of neat seeing it line by line. So it could take a while for you to get it. Which I was going to have a video of Slow Scan TV, but apparently we missed that part. So I apologize for that. Is there any questions on this round? Okay, well that was the end of it because we're now going to get into week 3 next week, which week 3 is going to be a little bit more information bound. So our class might be just a hair bit longer. We'll be learning about multi-mode radio excitement, electrons go with the flow, picture this, antennas, which we were talking about earlier, feeding with some good coax, because obviously you use coax to hook up your radios to be able to make contact, and then safety, which they call safety first, which you would think safety would be first, but in this case safety is last. So, but anyways, we are preparing to have a testing session. We're going to plan to be doing it on April 25th. It's a Saturday. I have everyone's emails that originally have contacted me. If you're a first time here and you have not contacted me, put your email address in the comments, or you can email me at whiskey3 Lima Echo Oscar at whiskey5 Mike Whiskey Charlie.org to be on the list. We're going to be doing about a 2-hour increment because there's actually a nice group size, and of course with the social distancing requirements right now we have to be careful, but we're planning to use a pavilion that has multiple tables so we can spread people out. I do ask you to provide your own pencils, calculators. You can use a common calculator if you think you might need it, because there are some math questions in there, and any scratch paper you might need. So that way we're minimizing the touching, okay? Also, go visit, I know I gave the email address earlier. Refresh me again for the FRN number.
You look at the
Just do I had it and I kept giving the wrong email, wrong initial website, and I apologize. But the, just do a search for the FCC. Actually, here, let me pull it up real fast. Give me just a second. Because you will want to create a login. You'll create you will want to register so you can get your FRN number.
While she's looking that up, I'll just bite her some time so she can not talk and she can look it up right now. She's giving me some dirty looks. And you ready?
Almost.
She's almost ready. Get back on the camera.
Okay, give me just a second. Anyways, let's see here. Okay, you'll go to fcc.gov, and then you'll want to look into the, let's see here. The intention is to, okay, give me just a second. I apologize, guys. You want to make sure I give you the right. Yeah, it would be easy to do the FCC ULS in the Google search, and you're going to want to get your, yeah, actually you could do FCC ULS registration, and it should be able to pull up the link, which is www.fcc.gov. Is the universal, yeah, you're going to fill out, I think they changed their website because it looks different to me, but anyways, the goal is to register for an FRN number, which is a federal, I knew the word, registration number, which you would, even if you don't get it ahead of time, they will assign you one. But the purpose of it is when you're filling out the paperwork that we send to the ARL that provides to the FCC is instead of using your social security number. That's the main purpose of that. So, okay, I'm going to toss it to Donald real quick.
So the FRN number is solely so you don't have to give us your social security number. If you don't care if we have your social security number on a piece of paper that goes to the federal government anyhow, you can go ahead and use your social security number. You will automatically be assigned an FRN number. Leah, if you look through your slides, you have that in your slides. You could go either way. If you give us your social security number, we will automatically get you a FRN number as soon as your license gets issued to you. But if you don't want to give us your social, by all means, go ahead and get your FRN number now. I think she almost has the page brought up where she actually has the ULS. It's at the end of week 1. She's still looking for it.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. It is. Here we go. And this I've talked about this last week too. So, anyways, the FR number is fcculs.org. So. No, I didn't. That's what I get. I don't remember. Let me double check. Well, that's the one I had last time. Okay. Okay, ignore. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, okay, ignore that. So, let me. Oops. Aha, 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 aha. Okay. It is going to be, I will copy this and then I'm going, can you see it? No, I'm going to put it on the slide. Bear with me, guys. No, it's going to put it on the slide. And that way people can see it. Oh, it's like really tiny though. Give me a sec, and I will make it bigger. There, I don't care if it takes off everything else. Okay. Obviously, https apps.fcc.gov/course/web/public-home.do. I don't know why they come up with that. But that's where you can go and register. Oh, she sent it by email? Okay. Well, we'll worry about that. Okay, but anyways, if you have troubles with it, just let me know and I'll help you find. But that's also the FCC ULS. It's also where you can find your call sign once we send it in. That way you know what your call sign is. But like I said before about the others, so okay. Well, it is 8:18, so we will call it a night. And again, you're more than welcome to email me with any questions that you might have about the testing session. So, which will be in 2 more weeks. And thank you guys again for attending and bearing with us as we're still learning this. So, I'm going to go back to Donald real fast.
And thank you for attending and thank you for your input. We're still working on some of the technical issues and we'll get it handled sometime. Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and say goodnight right here. We're going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you.
73.
73.